Gentlemen, let's take a listen to this soundbite from Hillary Clinton before we get started. She spoke about this controversy just a couple minutes ago.
He attacks black athletes, as he did, starting with his rally in Alabama, continued on Twitter. And he attacks them for protesting peacefully for equality, for standing up for what they believe. And he does it, once again, to dog whistle to his base and to try to detract attention from other things that are going on. But it's quite telling that he is willing to attack black athletes. He never says anything of an insulting manner toward white supremacists or neo-Nazis or Ku Klux Klanners or Vladimir Putin, right?
All right, Ben, I want to start with you because what Hillary Clinton is doing there is basically continuing the 2016 campaign. So it doesn't end. So she is on her book tour. She has every right to say what she wants to say. But does this crystallize for you something you say in your podcast regularly, that this is an ongoing thing, that it doesn't end and it might not end well?
It never ends. We're in a vortex of stupid, and it's reduced to a black hole of idiocy, and we're never going to escape it now. We're just going to be ceaselessly reliving 2016. Look, President Trump did a couple of things in that Alabama rally. The first thing that he did was he condemned people kneeling during the anthem, which I think is totally fine. The second thing he did, where he called for people to be fired, is not appropriate from a government official. When Hillary Clinton, however, suggests that this is rooted in racism, listen, when I think that President Trump has wrong-footed on racial issues, I've been very clear about it, but I don't see the racist intent here. If she's talking about people who are white that Trump has attacked, she could look in the mirror, because Trump does that every single day and continues to do that nearly a year after the elections. This isn't about race. This is about Trump felt like he had an issue that he got to club, and so he was going to club that issue like a baby seal. I mean, that's essentially what he did in Alabama.
But Richard, one of the things I tried to do today was to take a step back. So I didn't grow up going to football games. We went to rodeos where I grew up in Wyoming, and we always stood the anthem. And one of the things I've always loved about it was that I always felt sort of like when I was in church, where you have that moment of unity, everybody together, then there's like this common thread, and then maybe afterwards there's a problem. But I try to also be open-minded and look and see, is the original protest, which was about the complaint that Kaepernick had, that that white officers were being let off the hook for unjust killings of black, especially children, or youth. And I'm trying to understand, do they see this as a racist attack by President Trump?
They do, and let's talk about one case in particular. Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy in Ohio. Police drove up and shot him in the face. He had a toy gun. He was 12 years old. He was shot in the face. There was no freeze. There was no put your weapon down. He was shot in the face by police. Right. It was on tape. Everybody saw it. The country watched in shock and horror. We could talk about Eric Garner. I can go on and on and on. Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel. And that is where we were, right? Donald Trump this weekend then took it further. First, he used inflammatory language. No president in American history that I know of, in recent history, since I've been alive, has ever used that type of language. Every American, the president of the United States should be a role model to every child, right? I am 30 years old. I wouldn't use that language in front of my mother. My mom is watching tonight, which I won't repeat it. So the fact that we have a president that uses that language is disgusting. Right? So then let's move forward. He's saying these individuals should be fired for using their right to protest. People have tried to make it about the troops. They've tried to make it about the flag. They've tried to make it about the anthem. That is not what this protest is about. This protest is about racial injustice for people of color in this country. And that is what these athletes are using their platform to do, to protest racial injustice. Okay. Muhammad Ali did it, Jackie Robinson did it, Jesse Owens did it, Martin Luther King did it. And when they did it, it was unpopular. Protesting a lot of times is unpopular, but our First Amendment right allows us to be unpopular.
Absolutely. But here's something that I wonder about, Ben, which is that the original protest from Kaepernick had basically, in my opinion, and I don't watch a ton of sports, but it had been sort of dying out. We weren't hearing about it. Yep. He wasn't getting picked up by a team. It wasn't out there. And then President Trump, I think, sort of riffed on it on Friday night, and it became this explosive thing. And the left tends to overreact to President Trump. And then what you get at the end is basically people saying, yeah, I think you should stand for the national anthem, and we should probably try to continue to do more to calm racial tensions in the country, but the national anthem doesn't seem the place to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a series of overreactions that happens here. So first of all, just to talk about the underlying issue with regard to police brutality being systemic across the country, and then citing a case like Tamir Rice. Out here in California, there was a white homeless guy named Kelly Thomas who was beat to death on tape, and the officers eventually ended up getting off. Okay, that was not about racism. There is such a thing as police brutality having nothing to do with race.
Wrong.
There were some 760 shootings of people by the police this year, according to the Washington Post. 9 of them were of unarmed black people. So the idea that there's this wide spate of these shootings happening across the country is just not true.
Wrong,
but
no
beyond
matter if
that,
it's black or
the
white.
idea, what basically happened here is that Colin Kaepernick started a protest. It didn't turn into a movement. It was basically dying out. Most players didn't like it. The vast majority of Americans didn't like it. And then President Trump decided to bring it up again. And then the left reacted, as they always do to President Trump, by falling directly into whatever trap I think he inadvertently set. Trump says, anyone who kneels for the national anthem should be fired. And so now everybody on the left goes, well, then everybody should kneel for the national anthem. They basically react to him the same way that my 3-year-old daughter reacts to me when I'm using reverse psychology on him. It's just not smart. I mean, if you're on the left and you're trying to create a PR movement in favor of this movement, it doesn't seem to me like the smartest way to do that is to create the image of everybody kneeling during the national anthem. And the booing audiences across the country, the booing stadium audiences across the country seem to be good evidence that this is not a protest movement that is actually gaining steam. It's actually undercutting its own message. If you want to protest perceived police brutality, there are police stations right down the way you can go and protest. Sitting or
my sense is that this doesn't end
like
well.
The smartest way to do that.
My sense is that this does not end well for the NFL. I'm not exactly sure how it ends. I hope that it does. But Richard, from your perspective, do you think that this has actually been helpful?
Well, I want to make a couple points here. I don't think this is a left or right issue. I mean, if you look at some of the people who are protesting, so today at the Dallas Cowboys game, the owner of the Cowboys, which is not the left by any stretch or means of the imagination, neither is the owner of the Patriots, neither is many of these quarterbacks who hang out with Donald Trump, who take pictures with Donald Trump, who golf with Donald Trump, all understand that there's racial inequities in this country, and they said so, and they also have protested the national anthem. So let's be very clear. This is not a left or right issue. What Donald Trump did this weekend was he race baited. He walked out there, he called Colin Kaepernick's mother an SOB, and when engaging in this type of destructive racial debating in front of a group in Alabama, which is his base, he framed an argument that set up a situation where he would upset a group of African Americans, right, that got us to this place where people, white people and black people, said, not left or right, white African American, white people and black people, all Americans, like, this is wrong, Mr. President. That's why 200 members of the NFL said, there's something wrong here, and we're going to protest this.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the problem with this president, right? This is the problem that we're having here. He continues to put his foot in his mouth over and over again, and then there are folks like Ben who says, oh, it's the left. No, it's not the left. It's common sense Americans saying, this president is wrong. And then he goes out and he says, oh, well, look, the race car drivers are okay, but how many black race car drivers are there? There's only 4. So there you have it.
Okay,
right?
I'm going to give Ben the last word, if that's all right. Ben, how do we all move past this? If you had, your prescription pad, you could write a prescription for America for moving past this. How do we do it? Because you've talked about how the culture wars are basically just driving us apart. And I did think of you this weekend. I knew that you were observing the Jewish holidays, and I thought, oh my gosh, when he gets back online, he's just going to see this cascade of more culture wars.
Yeah, it just never ends. I mean, I think the only way to get past this is to go back to the consensus that we sort of had before. To suggest that Trump started this culture war is not true. He escalated the culture war. Kaepernick started this particular thing. I mean, this was a controversy a year ago. So to pretend that Trump started by shooting Tamir Rice in the face. If we want to get back to consensus here, then we need to go back to where I think public opinion actually is, which is it's inappropriate to protest the national anthem or during the national anthem. Protest all you want in other venues, and at the same time, no one should be fired for this. I mean, that's the basic opinion. I'm not saying that Kaepernick doesn't have the right to do it or any of these players don't have the right to do it. They certainly have the right to do it. Owners have the right to react how they want to react. The president should not be calling on people to be fired for expressing their protest opinions any way they see fit. With that said, I think that there are only very few common symbols that we hold together, and those are things like the flag and the national anthem and football, by the way. And as those disappear, as those become politicized, the country becomes almost irreconcilable.
Oh, but let's not do that, right? I think the three of us agree, and maybe the people watching.
We do. I mean, we agree, Dana. I think the one thing I will add to that, I think, is we have to go back to the beginning here and figure out how we level the playing field and solve injustices, right? And that solves by stopping state-sanctioned violences that's happening to both white and black people, by over the excessive use of force by police
Yeah.
departments.
Well, there's a lot to debate there, too. All right, gentlemen, thank you so